I never thought a party invitation would be the thing that unraveled years of friendship. But here we are. Let me start from the beginning, before things got complicated, before lines were drawn in silence. Back in 2019, Callum, 31M, had just moved to a new city with a few of my closest friends. We were all riding high on that post-college freedom, new apartments, new jobs, a new life finally on our own terms. The kind of setup where everyone feels like they're in a coming-of-age movie, except we were in our late 20s and still eating instant noodles for dinner. Among that group was Mason, one of my oldest and closest friends. He was the first one to dive headfirst into dating in the new city. A couple of months in, he matched with this woman on Bumble, Tessa. I still remember the first time we met her. She came to one of our rooftop get-togethers with a bottle of overpriced wine and a laugh that turned heads. Everyone liked her at first. And I mean everyone. She was charismatic, smart, and social, but over time, there was something underneath the surface, this need for control, for being the one who set the mood of the room. If Tessa wasn't vibing, nobody else could either. She had this subtle, almost elegant way of punishing people she didn't like. Not openly, not in a way you could confront her on. It was always just coldness, silence, exclusion. Eventually, Tessa started bringing her own friends into the group, and naturally, people started coupling up. Our once tight-knit circle became a web of intergroup relationships, hookups, and situationships. Honestly, it felt like we were all living inside a low-budget sitcom. Everyone was dating everyone. Everyone had some history with someone else. Except me. I made a point not to date within the group. I didn't want to complicate things. I'd seen how messy it got, and I wasn't trying to live out some real-life soap opera. But Tessa, she wouldn't let up. She kept insisting she had the perfect friend for me. Said we'd be a power match. Eventually, I caved. Her friend, Hannah, was fine. Nothing wrong with her. She was nice enough. We got drinks a few times, saw a movie, tried a museum date. But from the start, something felt off. We didn't connect. She was into astrology and energy readings. I'm into sports and podcasts. She wanted deep, spiritual convos at 7 a.m., and I just wanted my coffee and quiet. So, after about a month, I ended it. Politely. Respectfully. Or so I thought. What followed was chaos. Hannah didn't just take it hard. She waged a campaign against me. She went through our friend group dropping truth bombs, sharing personal things I'd confided in her, twisting stories to make me look like a manipulative jerk. She even made comments about my body and spread lies about my family. I was stunned, completely blindsided. The worst part? Tessa sided with her. She never said it out loud, of course. But she didn't have to. The way she stopped inviting me to things she used to. The way she'd speak over me at gatherings or accidentally forget I was coming. Slowly but surely, I became that guy. The one everyone was polite to, but no one was really excited to see. I tried to push through. I told myself it would pass. That it was just tension that needed time to cool off. But it didn't. When Mason got engaged to Tessa a year later, I felt this hollow pit in my stomach. Not because I didn't want him to be happy, but because I knew what that meant. That this woman, who had spent a year passively freezing me out and pushing her own narratives, was about to be locked into our group permanently. And if she had a problem with you, you might as well be a ghost. I wasn't banned from anything, but I might as well have been. I became a background character in a group I helped build. But then, last summer, something changed. I met Liv. It wasn't through the group, or a dating app, or mutual friends. It was just organic. I joined a local running club to clear my head and get in shape. She showed up in the same pace group one Saturday morning. We struck up a conversation about podcasts during our cool-down walk. And that was it. From the start, Liv was different. There was no game playing, no cryptic messages, no second-guessing myself after a date. She was grounded, thoughtful, and genuinely funny in a way that caught me off guard. 10 months in, and it's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in. Hands down. So when Mason invited us both to his birthday party this past January, I hesitated, but eventually said yes. I figured enough time had passed. Everyone's older now. Maybe things had settled. That was a mistake. From the moment Liv and I walked through the door, the atmosphere shifted. The energy in the room was cold, like someone had turned down the emotional thermostat. Tessa saw us, made eye contact, then turned back to her drink. Hannah was there too, sitting in the corner like some sort of high school mean girl reawakened. Liv, ever the optimist, smiled and tried to introduce herself. I made sure to walk her around, say names, point out who's who. Some people nodded. A couple smiled back, but most just stared and then looked away. It wasn't just awkward. It was calculated. We stayed for almost 4 hours. For hours of Liv trying to start conversations that went nowhere. For hours of being talked around and over. For hours of me realizing that this wasn't just old tension, this was a coordinated cold shoulder. When we got back to my apartment, Liv didn't say anything. She just sat down on the couch and stared at the floor. After a minute, she looked at me and said, "I don't know what I did wrong." And my heart broke. I don't know what I did wrong. Those were the first words Liv said when we got home from the party. No anger, no tears, just confusion. And something else that hit even harder, disappointment. I had no words. I couldn't even look at her at first. I just sat there, ashamed that I brought her into that space, into that group, into my world, thinking it was safe, thinking it was still mine. But it wasn't. Not anymore. We talked for a while that night, going over every moment from the party, trying to dissect the tension like it was some kind of forensic case. Liv told me how she tried to strike up small talk with Tessa, but Tessa responded with a flat, uh-huh, and immediately turned to talk to someone else. She said she smiled at Hannah, got nothing back. She asked Mason about a playlist that was playing and got a curt, "Not sure." Tessa made it. And the worst part? "I felt like I was embarrassing you just by being there," she said. That one nearly knocked the air out of me. She wasn't the problem. The problem was the atmosphere, the whispered conversations, the glances, the polite smiles with sharp undertones. But in that kind of room, silence cuts the deepest. The next day, I texted Jonah, one of the few guys from the old crew who hadn't been at the party. He and I still grabbed drinks every now and then, and I figured he'd be a neutral ear. I told him what happened. How Liv had been completely ignored, how I felt like we were being intentionally frozen out, how even Mason barely acknowledged us. I wasn't trying to stir up drama, I just needed to talk to someone who remembered who I was before all this toxicity rolled in. His reply? "That's crazy. Mason and Tessa told me you guys were the ones who were off. Said you barely introduced her to anyone and acted cold all night." I stared at my phone in disbelief. That was the moment the switch flipped. Because that wasn't a miscommunication, that was a lie. A convenient, neat little lie to cover up their own behavior. A narrative they could tuck into their pocket and pass around the group without ever confronting what really happened. I had walked in with Liv, my hand on her back, said her name to every person we passed, made the rounds. Some of them had even met her before. And now they were spinning the story like we ghosted the party? Like Liv and I were just antisocial buzzkills who couldn't be bothered? No. This wasn't about introductions. This wasn't about forgetting names or being too quiet. This was about Tessa. And it always had been. Tessa, the self-appointed queen of the group, never got over the fact that I didn't stay with her friend Hannah. And when I didn't crumble under Hannah's smear campaign, Tessa shifted tactics. She never confronted me directly. Oh no, she was smarter than that. She just started stacking silence. Withdrawing invites. Making sure I felt that tiny sting of, "You're not really one of us," over and over again. And now, Liv was collateral damage. It made me sick. I didn't confront Mason right away. I knew how that would go. He'd probably say something neutral and spineless like, "I didn't notice anything," or, "I'm sure it wasn't intentional," all while parroting whatever version of events Tessa handed him. Because Mason doesn't rock the boat. He's the guy who picks peace over truth every time. So instead, I waited. I observed. Over the next 2 weeks, I noticed something. Silence. No one from the group messaged me. No one followed up with, "Hey, great seeing you," or "Nice to meet Liv." Not a single check-in. The group chat I used to be active in, dead quiet on my end. But I saw the stories. I saw the dinners. I saw the game nights and bar crawls. They didn't slow down. They just moved forward, without me. The message was clear. If Tessa isn't happy with you, nobody is. I told Liv all of it. About the text from Jonah. About how they were rewriting the night like we were ghosts who'd haunted their perfect little party. She didn't cry. She didn't even get mad. She just nodded and said, "Then you know what kind of people they are." And yeah, I did. I started talking to friends outside that circle more. People who didn't know Tessa. People who had no reason to sugarcoat it. When I told them the story, they were stunned. Wait, they ignored your girlfriend on purpose? They blamed you for not introducing her after 4 hours of silent treatment? That's actually disgusting. One of my coworkers, who'd met Liv at a work happy hour, said it best. You can always tell what kind of people someone's friends with by how they treat someone new. And they failed that test hard. Still, despite everything, part of me wrestled with guilt. Not because I felt like I did anything wrong, but because this was a group I had history with. I had memories with these people. We'd been through late-night breakups, job losses, vacations, drunken heart-to-hearts, house moves. Was I really going to walk away from all of that? Then, just as I was going back and forth in my head, the text came in from Mason. Yo, we're finally moved in. Big housewarming party next weekend. Would love to have you and Liv come by. Food, drinks, everyone's gonna be there. Hope you guys can make it. I read it twice. Then a third time. No acknowledgement. No follow-up from the birthday party. No, hey, sorry if things fell off last time. Just a sunny little invite like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't sat in a room full of people who pretended we didn't exist. I showed it to Liv. She didn't say anything. Just gave me that look, the kind that says, please don't make me go through that again. I nodded. I didn't reply. Because I wasn't sure what that invite was. A peace offering? Or a trap? The housewarming invite sat in my messages like an unopened envelope filled with bad news. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. It would have been so easy to just delete it, move on, and never look back. But I didn't. Instead, I stared at it every night before bed like it had the power to reverse time. And in a weird way, I think part of me hoped it would. The thing is, this wasn't just about a party. This wasn't about cupcakes and cocktails and bad house playlists. This was about what it symbolized. I knew if Liv and I showed up, we'd be walking into a lion's den. Nothing had changed. There'd been no apology, no acknowledgement, no, hey, let's talk. Just a cheerful invite like the last gathering never happened. Like my girlfriend hadn't been humiliated. Like I hadn't watched my friends say absolutely nothing while it happened. But still, there was that voice in my head. The one that said, but what if this is a chance to fix it? What if it's a peace offering? What if you're walking away too fast? I hated that voice. I hated that I even needed it to be a peace offering. Because the truth is, I knew better. I knew Mason. And I knew Tessa. If this invite was anything, it was a social obligation. A look how mature we are move. An easy way to say they weren't the problem without having to change anything. And the worst part? They probably thought we owed them an apology. I brought it up to Liv a couple of nights later while we were making dinner. I kept it casual, like I was just mentioning it in passing. She looked up from the cutting board and raised one eyebrow. You're not actually thinking about going, are you? I'm not sure, I said, even though I was. That look again. Not judgmental, just tired. Like she was bracing herself for another night of being dismissed and disrespected. I don't want to keep being the reason you feel torn, she said. But I won't go back to a place where I'm treated like I don't exist. I nodded. She didn't need to say more. She had my answer before I even gave it. But I still felt this strange guilt settling in my chest. Like I was betraying my past by choosing peace in the present. That's the thing about old friendships. They're like gravity. Even when they start to pull you in the wrong direction, the weight of history keeps you circling around them. Because for so long, they were your world. And now, suddenly, they're not. I scrolled through old photos that night, back when things felt simple. Birthdays in our crammed apartments. Sunday brunches after long Saturday nights. Beach days. Road trips. That one time we tried camping and gave up after one mosquito-filled hour. And Mason? He was in all of it. We'd been friends since sophomore year of college. He was the guy who helped me move apartments 4 times. The guy who covered for me when I skipped work. The guy I almost asked to be my best man if I ever got married. And now? I couldn't even trust him to say hi to my girlfriend. The day before the party, I finally responded. I kept it short, honest, firm. Hey man, appreciate the invite, but Liv and I are gonna sit this one out. The last time we saw everyone, she didn't feel welcome, and I didn't feel like anyone cared enough to check in. I'm not trying to start drama, but I'm also not going to ignore how we were treated. Hope the move went well. I hit send. My heart rate spiked. And then I waited. 5 hours later, Mason replied. Sorry you feel that way. I didn't notice anything wrong at the party. Tessa said she tried to talk to Liv, but it felt like she wasn't that interested. Anyway, no worries. Hope you're good. I stared at that message until my screen dimmed. Sorry you feel that way. Classic. Not, sorry for what happened. Not, I should have checked in. Just a carefully worded non-apology and a pass-the-blame statement from Tessa. Like clockwork. I showed Liv the message. She didn't say anything at first. Just sighed. They're never going to get it, are they? I shook my head. No, they won't. And in that moment, I think we both felt it. That click, the quiet, final separation. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. No screaming, no blocking, no digital fireworks. Just a clean break. Later that night, I got a message from Derek, another guy in the group. He wasn't one of the loud ones. He played the quiet middle. Friendly with everyone. Never made waves. He just said, "Still your friend. Always will be." I just didn't know how to stand up without blowing it all up. And you know what? I believed him. Because I know how that feels. To be stuck between the truth and the peace. To see the cracks in something you once loved and be too afraid to look closer. Because if you do, you might realize it's already broken. I didn't respond right away. I didn't know what to say. But I did feel something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't losing everything. I was just shedding what no longer fit. After I sent Mason that message and read his response, that classic, polished, "Sorry you feel that way," I felt something shift in me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even disappointment. It was clarity. Like I'd finally stopped banging my head against a locked door that I wasn't meant to walk through anymore. For so long, I tried to hold on to this friend group like it was a life raft. But now I could see it for what it really was. A ship that had sailed without me a long time ago, and I'd just been swimming behind it, pretending I was still on board. I didn't respond to Mason's text. There was nothing left to say. The housewarming party came and went. Liv and I went hiking that day, just us, no phones, no social media. We packed a picnic, brought a Bluetooth speaker, and found a spot near the edge of the lake where the sun broke through the trees just enough to make the water sparkle. I watched her laugh with her shoes off, her feet in the water, and for the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt around my old friends in a long, long time. Ease. No walking on eggshells. No wondering who was whispering what behind my back. No fake smiles or social politics. Just peace. That night, when I finally turned my phone back on, it lit up with notifications, but not from who you'd expect. Mason? Silent. Tessa? Of course not. Even Derek, who'd promised he was still my friend, hadn't followed up. Maybe he didn't know what to say. Or maybe saying anything would have put him on Tessa's radar. And no one wants to be on her radar unless they're her chosen favorite of the week. But one message did come through that caught me completely off guard. It was from Hannah. Yeah, that Hannah. Tessa's friend. The one I dated for a hot minute way back. The one who lit the match that burned my reputation to the ground that summer. The one who lied about me to her friends, twisted private things I'd told her, and helped fuel this weird Cold War that had followed me around for years. I stared at her name on the screen, stunned. Her message was short. "Hey, I heard some stuff about the party and just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how things went down back when we dated. I was immature. I lashed out. And I know it made your life really hard. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I've thought about it a lot. I'm sorry, Callum. I didn't know how to feel. Was it real? Was it sincere? Or was it just convenient, now that the group was cracking and the power dynamics were shifting?" I showed Liv. Her reaction surprised me. Well, she said after reading it, "Closure is closure. Doesn't mean you have to invite it back in." She was right. The apology didn't erase what had happened. It didn't change how I was treated. But for what it was, it felt honest. Maybe not redeeming, but human. And that's more than I could say for the rest of them. I didn't reply. Not right away. Maybe I never will. But it didn't leave me angry. It left me quiet. Like a wound I didn't realize was still open had finally been stitched shut. That week, I started spending more time with people outside the old circle. Coworkers. Liv's friends. Some folks from the running club. No drama. No high school flashbacks. Just people who liked me because I was me, not because I had tenure in their friend group. The contrast was jarring. The same week Liv and I skipped Mason's party, we went to a small game night at my coworker's place. It was 6 people, some beer, bad takeout, and a lot of Cards Against Humanity. No hierarchy. No side eyes. No weird social dance where one person gets iced out and everyone else pretends not to notice. Liv leaned over halfway through the night and whispered, "I haven't laughed this hard in months." And neither had I. That night, when we got home, I told her something I hadn't said out loud before. "I think I've been afraid to let go of them," I admitted, because I thought letting go would mean I didn't care, that it all meant nothing. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "Letting go doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means you finally realize you matter too." That hit hard. Because she was right. I had spent the past year twisting myself into knots trying to figure out how to belong again. How to get back to a group that had slowly made it clear I wasn't part of it anymore. And even deeper than that, I realized I didn't want to belong there anymore. I didn't want to earn Tessa's approval. I didn't want to keep pretending that Mason hadn't become someone who was okay with watching his friends get mistreated. I didn't want to be in a group where silence was loyalty and speaking up was treason. So I let go. No goodbye posts. No long emotional texts. No, I'm leaving the group chat, dramatic exits. I just stopped showing up. And you know what? The world didn't end. In fact, my world got quieter. Softer. Better. The only time I heard from anyone in that circle again was when Derek sent me a meme out of nowhere 2 weeks later. No context. No, how are you? Just a stupid gif of a raccoon stealing pizza. I didn't read into it. I didn't use it as a bridge back. I just sent back a laughing emoji. Because some things don't need a big confrontation. Some friendships don't die, they fade. And sometimes, that's all the closure you need. It's been a few months since we skipped the housewarming party. The silence that followed was deafening at first, but not unexpected. No follow-up from Mason. No apology. No second chance to explain. Just a quiet void where a friendship used to be. And you know what? That silence became peace. It's funny how something that used to feel like rejection slowly transforms into relief. There was a time when being left out of the group chat would have crushed me. When seeing them post stories without me would have set off waves of doubt, guilt, and self-loathing. But now I look at those same posts, those same dinners and bar nights and spontaneous hangouts, and I feel nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Just distance. The kind that brings perspective. The kind that finally lets you breathe. Since then, Liv and I have made our own circle. It's smaller. Quieter. Less curated for social media, more centered around real connection. We've built friendships with people who ask how she's doing, who remember her name, who don't make her feel like she needs to earn her seat at the table. People who like us both. Equally. Authentically. There's no queen bee in this circle. No social politics. No emotional gatekeeping. Just shared meals, inside jokes, open invites, and people who check in just because. And the wildest part? We don't have to prove anything to be included. It's the first time in years that I've felt socially safe. Emotionally stable. Like I'm not holding my breath around the people I call friends. Liv told me the other day that she still thinks about that party sometimes. Not because of how it made her feel, but because of how it revealed everything I'd refused to see for too long. They didn't just ignore me, she said. They exposed themselves. And I'm glad they did. And that hit me hard. Because the truth is, that night didn't break anything. It revealed what was already broken. For a long time, I'd held on to that friend group like a worn-out pair of shoes. Comfortable. Familiar. Full of memories. But eventually, they stopped fitting. They started to hurt. And I kept trying to stretch and squeeze and compromise just to make them work again. But some things aren't meant to be fixed. They're meant to be released. And that's exactly what I did. Letting go wasn't dramatic. I didn't make a big announcement. I didn't throw shade online. I just stopped chasing people who were fine watching me fade into the background. I stopped showing up for people who only liked the version of me that kept quiet. And I started choosing the version of me who speaks up, who protects his peace, who doesn't let silence dress itself up as loyalty. That's what real growth looks like. Not a fiery exit. Not a middle finger. Just the quiet confidence to walk away without needing to be chased. Sometimes, I still wonder what Mason thinks. If he even realizes what he lost. If he misses me at all. If he's ever looked around at a party, seen an empty seat, and thought, damn, I wish Callum was here. But I don't dwell on it. Because I'm not waiting for him to miss me. I'm too busy showing up for the people who never stopped choosing me in the first place. The ones who see Liv. The ones who ask questions, who laugh loud, who remember your birthday and your dog's name, and that weird inside joke you made once at a coffee shop at 10 p.m. Those are my people now. And it took walking away from a loud, shiny, carefully constructed friend group to realize something simple but life-changing. You don't have to stay somewhere just because you've been there a long time. History isn't a reason to tolerate being mistreated. And loyalty doesn't mean silence when someone you love is being disrespected. So no, I didn't lose my friends. I outgrew them. And now, I've got room for the kind of friendships that don't require explaining or defending or shrinking myself just to belong. Ones where being me is enough.